You and Chris both have got to admit that I got you pretty good a couple of minutes ago when Andy was doing the top 5, and on my camera here, I popped open a can and it's sneakily in a koozie. So both of you go, "What?" Your eyes got real big. What's Brenden doing? And then I showed you it was a sparkling water, but I figured because it's summertime, and even though I'm here with you, Jamokes, instead of at a happy hour on a patio somewhere, I'm putting my sparkling water in a koozie just to kind of feel the vibe of the weekend. The weekend has begun, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, okay. Wow. How do you feel about that, Chris?
I mean, if only I could just reach out my hand and a nice little brewski could like pop into it like Thor's hammer.
See, he agrees. But Chris was like, "What is he? Is he opening a?" And then I like showed him what it was.
Do my eyes deceive me? Is that a cold one he's like cracking?
Something about the koozie makes it look like it, you know?
It's a Friday, and like, it's 5 p.m.
Like it's a frosty beverage, yes, yeah.
This is why the Cubs play all their home games on Fridays at 1:20, because by 5 o'clock, you're in Wrigleyville.
It's go time,
my
baby.
friend.
You're in Wrigleyville, and all you want to do is drink, I suppose.
So what happened? Where are we not? We're not in Wrigleyville. Some of the wires got crossed. I don't know what happened here. It's all good. I'm just playing.
It's all good.
I'm enjoying the Wrigleyville vibe from afar in a responsible way with a raspberry lime sparkling water. Let's rock and roll with this 5 o'clock hour. Gosh. That's all I'm saying.
Wrigleyville.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's 5 o'clock here.
It's 5 o'clock
but
here.
I'm just having a sparkling water
during the break.
No, didn't do that. No, didn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean,
no,
what's that?
I'll defend myself. I'll be out front and open. It's a sparkling water. I don't even know.
I mean,
what kind
even
of
if you were not revealing the identity of your drink, I mean,
well, think about this. If you finish first, what would happen?
I don't know. I mean, I honestly was the only thing I saw was you holding up the logo of the drink. I didn't even see you holding up a drink in a koozie before then, so I was kind of lost in the context.
You were busy. You were talking actively on the top 5 at 5, and producer Chris is the only one that really saw what happened at first. But it's I don't know. I thought it was funny. I got a kick out of it. So
875 KTGR. If it's 5 o'clock wherever you are, let us know, including here. If you are in the central time zone, but you could be on the KTGR app listening in, I don't know, Brussels or something like that.
Yeah.
Who knows?
What time is it in Brussels,
No
Andy?
idea. I'm going to guess it's probably night. It's probably nighttime in Brussels, wouldn't it be? Probably close to 10, 11 p.m., maybe even midnight.
It says it's 12:10 a.m. I guess so that's Brussels time.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't know much about how this stuff works.
Well, back in this time, the Cardinals are back to 500, and they're the closest.
It's the future
team
in Brussels.
Yeah.
It's already Saturday.
Exactly. You know, the whole back in time sort of thing.
That's the whole thing.
They're the closest team to the Brewers right now. Is it just a foregone conclusion that, hey, that's the team that if there is going to be a challenger to the Brewers, that it's the Cardinals right now? Or is it just this stretch that they've had against divisional opponents pushing them a little bit further down that makes the difference there? I mean, it's an interesting weekend because Cards are playing the Cubs and the Brewers are playing the Reds. So you got two divisional matchups going on at the same time this weekend that could – I mean, if the Brewers end up taking care of business in most of those games, then it separates it out even more.
Yeah, but you're still behind the Brewers. You're still behind the Brewers, though. I'd say you're Cardinals fans, you should be rooting for the Reds. You should be rooting for this to become a 5-team race instead of what is effectively a 1-team race right now. I get it. The Reds will catch you if they keep winning too, but somebody's got to do something to the Brewers. Otherwise, the division's not really an option. And look, the division may not be an option. The Brewers are going to have to give it back, but at some point, you know, that could be coming into play if the Cardinals can play well enough. For me, are the Cardinals definitively the team to chase down the Brewers? No, we can't say that yet. You got to at least get above 500 before we can even entertain that idea. And this is, again, another opportunity where they've gotten to 500. They have not yet been able to get over 500 in the times they've gotten back to that number. So we'll see what happens tomorrow afternoon. But I don't know, Andy, like this is still a very close race 2 through 5 where the Pirates, they're 4 games under. Now the Cubs are too. both those teams are still only 2 games back of St. Louis as we talk right here at 5:12 on the Big Show. That's Central Time, not Brussels time. So I look at it, and I just don't think you can definitively say until the Cardinals prolong this kind of run for a little bit more. And honestly, I need to see offense as part of it too. Like, the pitching is not going to do this every single time for a prolonged period. So eventually I want to see the offense be the thing to carry the Cardinals. I feel like I've been beating that drum since March, but that's still something that we haven't seen consistently enough. And until I see it, I know that you're just 1 or 2 pitching injuries away from suddenly, you don't have that same edge that you thought you had built.
Right, and we've seen it all this week, even though they've won some games, and they've won 3 straight at the moment. It's not because the offense was lighting it on fire. It's because, you quite possibly were playing against some underperforming lineups at the moment. And honestly, like the Cubs, I think we can call them, for the most part, an underperforming lineup. I see names that I look at their numbers, and I think that should be higher than it is right now, right? For a lot of these guys up and down. And I think that the Cardinals have taken advantage of that, and they can't apologize for it, and their pitching has been solid, and they've gotten great bullpen performances all throughout this week, and Kyle Gibson was excellent today. But, yes, eventually you have to find some cushion for those guys because, again, as we've talked about, their pitching, and Kyle Gibson had to pitch in 7 high-pressure innings. Like, it wasn't necessarily like every single inning was the same, but when you pitch in a game like that, it taxes you maybe a little bit more, which is why I don't mind Ollie Marmol taking Kyle Gibson out at 88 pitches, because I'm sure he had to really stay competitive to make sure he wasn't giving up the lead, because the offense was not doing anything to that point. So the offense does have to be the one that shows you more than you have seen so far this year. They don't have, for me, they have not shown the evidence that they're going to be challenging in a divisional race. They could still sneak in as a wild card team, but I don't see a lineup right now, even though they got the win today, that is going to scare opposing pitching staffs when we get to July, August, September, times like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the scare they put into the opposing staff. Hopefully you don't scare them, because then maybe they'll overlook you. But just like the reality of their performance is just they scatter some hits, and then they don't always seem to come up with the clutch hit with runners in scoring position. Today they were like 2 for 6, so that's perfectly suitable. They didn't have as many opportunities getting runners to second base, but neither did the Cubs, right? Like they didn't get a runner to second base maybe until that 9th inning. I'd have to go back and look. So those kind of days are going to happen for an offense, but they seem to come too often for the Cardinals. And if you just look up and down the lineup and you're looking at OPS, as I like to do, I mean, today's lineup, there's just nothing tying this lineup together. Win at 779 for the OPS is kind of head and shoulders above the rest right now, and he's batting first, so Ollie Marmol's doing the right thing there. Burleson's at 741. Gorman at 746. He's really turned in a sour way after the run that he went on with that previous road trip, Andy. He's now 3 for his last 30 or so. He was 0 for 4 today with 3 strikeouts. He recently had a golden sombrero. It's turning down for him a little bit to where he's at 746. Herrera with a 1 for 3 day snuck up to 701 OPS. Donovan's at 702. But that's about half your lineup, and everybody else is sub 700, and some are sub 600, sub 500. They just don't really have anything tying the lineup together. Andy, this is going to sound crazy, novel idea, but it's going to boil down to guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado getting it going, because they're sitting in the middle of your lineup, still batting 3 and 4 today, and their OPS is 651, 696. Those are the kinds of numbers you'd expect of like 7, 8, 9 guys. But they're batting in the middle of your order, and your 7, 8, 9 guys are Pages with a 480 OPS and Carlson with a 511, although he's coming around. He's chugging 2 for 4 day with an RBI hit. So it's just that sort of thing that you're having to deal with. There's not anything tying this lineup together. It could change on a dime, though. And I'm not saying it's going to, but there's room for either Goldie or Arenado to take off. One of them does it, and then you get a Wilson Contreras back later in June, and maybe even a Newt Bar before July, maybe even a Tommy Edman, and the lineup looks completely different. But like all of those things have to happen, and I don't think you can just take for granted that they're automatic. That guys are going to have to work back from injury, and then when they get back, they're going to have to be sharp. Unlike when Dillon returned from the IL, he was not sharp right away. Those guys are going to have to do it, as are Goldie and Arenado going to have to try and just more consistently have the types of games that we're used to seeing from them. And then over the course of days and weeks and months, their numbers are going to be there. But we're Flag Day. So if we talk about Mike Claiborne's adage and take it to heart that by Flag Day you kind of get an idea of what you are, Goldie and Arenado just also rans anymore, that would not be good for the Cardinals. Now, I will say, Arenado's looked a lot more locked in recently. He's looked devoted to base running in a way that I have not seen from him, and this is just something that started over the past 4 days or so this week, and Goldie with the home run yesterday. So there's ways to see it turning right for him, Andy, but until I see a number of those things materialize, I'm not necessarily going to go over the moon and say, yep, it's the Cardinals and Brewers or bust, because I don't think the Cardinals have elevated themselves to that point just yet, but I'm leaving the door open for them to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, a good weekend here, and Chris texting in 875-KTGR, got to get one more in Chicago and then take care of business against Miami next week.
I was going to say that too.
Bad
Good
game.
job, Chris.
Yeah, well done. Chris is on the same page.
It's like he's in your head.
Did you just high-five yourself as a way to high-five Chris?
Well, I can't high-five Chris over the phone, so I got to do it here.
That was what you just did. Yeah, you just did. Wow.
It is another Chris that actually texted in. He's not over in the studio.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He also texted in, today's hitters are streaky, and the days of a Tony Gwynn are in the past.
You ain't kidding.
Yeah, that's very true.
Outside Luis Arias, he's like the one that sort of models a Tony Gwynn type of mentality, but nobody's ever going to be Tony Gwynn.
Or like Jose Ramirez, too, for Cleveland a little bit, maybe.
You know what?
Tired of him.
Yeah.
You're tired of him, and you should be if you're a Royals fan, because when we think of like the elite players, he is a model hitter, man.
I know, right?
Just year after year after year, he does it, and that's another reason that maybe I need to give the Guardians a little more due, because that guy's always going to be there in the middle of their lineup thumping. When are the Cardinals guys that are supposed to be automatic going to get there? Again, I'm not trying to rip them too hard because they're on the come. It feels like with both Goldie and Arenado, they're playing better than they had been, but it's still not at a consistent enough rate that it's made much of a dent in the big valley of their numbers that they have built.
And even then, I mean, you could have those guys raking again, and it still might not matter if you don't get the contributions from everybody else.
Like Gorman, if he stays tailed off, then it's like, well,
4 with 3 strikeouts today, right?
Andy, it's been a good 6, 8, 10 games now for Gorman that he's sort of cooled off, and not even sort of. We know he's a streaky hitter, but like, this is why, like, this was a good question I was asked earlier today. If you were doing a redraft of MLB, which Cardinal would you keep? Like, if you could just keep one and they're going to redraft the rest of the league, who's your keeper? This one should be an obvious answer to me anyway.
I think absolutely Mason Wynn.
Who do you got? Mason Wynn's the answer.
Yeah.
But then if I would have said keep 2, Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, who are you cutting from that group, and who are you keeping?
Oh, so because I get to keep 2 of that group?
You only got to get rid of 1.
Donovan, Nootbaar, and Gorman?
Yeah. You're keeping 2. And like, Gorman's got the biggest tool, the raw power from the left side, but Andy, he goes for sometimes weeks at a time, and it's just, he gets them in bunches. When he gets them in, his numbers will be there at the end, but is accumulating the numbers in that way is valuable. And then you think about, Nootbaar maybe not always being healthy. It's a lot of, it's tricky.
I mean, it could matter, like, because for Nolan Gorman, if I'm just saying cut him and I don't care about what value I could get in return, like if I was saying if I keep these guys but I get to trade one of them and see what value that I get, then I probably go with Gorman because of his power, and
because you think that's worth
probably value
something
that
in trade.
Yeah,
but don't look at it that way, because I don't know if we're right about that. Because if we were, the Cardinals might have gotten a starter for him last off season. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't know if we know what other teams perceive, because maybe they would look at it and say the same thing we're saying about, well, he's too streaky. But just in terms of who would you want to keep and build around?
I would want to keep Donovan.
I thought so too. That's what I said.
Yeah.
But then Nootbaar is like the obvious answer until you realize, man, he misses a lot of time with injury.
Yeah.
But how can you project that? It's a tricky, and like, these are the kinds of questions that I think philosophically matter to why the Cardinals are where they are, because you want to just say, oh my gosh, I like all those guys. You could throw Alec Burleson's name in here and be like, yeah, that's a hitter that doesn't strike out and he's power from the left side. But they're not quite over the hump of being a team that you're really ready to call good, even though you've got all the pieces in there that you really do appreciate.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'd probably say keep Gorman.
Okay.
And
over Newt.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's keeping 2 infielders there, and it's already
don't think too hard. And 3 actually, because we're already keeping
Mason Wynn. Yeah,
just don't think too hard on it. Here's what I would say: I'm keeping Newt Bar, and I'm going to say I'll jettison Gorman, and by saying it, he's going to go on a hot streak, make me look dumb. That was the plan there.
Yeah,
that's all I needed to do.
If that happens, then kudos
pitch in,
to
do my
Brenden
part.
For
there you go,
for trying to make that happen.